Hello, my name is Matt Whitman. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Greetings to all of you who've been hanging out with me since the beginning, for however many 100 episodes that is, talking about Matthew in little 10-ish minute increments every weekday. And also, hey, welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. Maybe you're digging around for a new podcast. Maybe a friend asked you to check it out. One way or another, I totally get it. It could be intimidating, feeling like you're jumping into a conversation in the middle of things, like you're late to the dance or something. You ain't. You can jump in right now, right where we're at. You're smart. You'll take the context clues quickly to heart and figure out where we're at. And you can always jump back into the back catalog if you ever feel like it. One way or another, don't feel like we got some kind of weird inside joke here that you're not welcome to. You are in immediately. Thanks for being a part of this thing, whether you're brand new or you've been here forever. Right now, we're working on Matthew chapter 20 and this parable that looks like it's going to have a twist coming up about this landowner who does something completely normal, which is go out and hire people to work in his fields. I mean, this isn't even an old school way of doing business. This is a new school way of doing business in lots of parts of the world. When I lived in Las Vegas, there were a couple of greenhouses. I remember one in particular on, what was that? It was like Eastern and the 225 is across from the Big Anytime Fitness. And when you would drive by there every morning, you would see a whole bunch of people just hanging out, chilling with their friends, knowing the people who were going to that nursery were probably going to need day laborers. And sure enough, you constantly see people come by and negotiate a deal, and then they'd hustle off to a day of work, and hopefully the wages were good. But I always felt bad when I drive by and it's 3 or 4 in the afternoon and you see a few people still hanging out. And it's like, dang, I don't know what your circumstances are. I don't know how long you've lived in the area. I don't know what family you're trying to support, but work did not show up and you are still sitting here and you are going to give it an honest go all day long. Mad respect. And some people I thought were pretty cool would do little things to try to help people out in that situation, swing by with food or drink or whatever, and I respect them for doing that too. Whatever the case, if you can picture that scenario, you can picture the scenario that Jesus is talking about in this parable, this story that he's telling here in Matthew chapter 20. He goes out early in the morning and he picks a bunch of workers and hires them. Now, presumably, he didn't hire everybody. So how did he decide who to include and who to exclude? Did he look at the crop and be like, well, let's take the most competent people here? I mean, we want to get the job done. A normal landowner would probably do that. He wouldn't pick the old and sickliest looking types. He'd pick the youngest, strongest, eagerest to work types or the crews that come as a package deal. But whatever the case, he makes a reasonable deal and says, hey, I'm going to give you a day's wage, and sends them out into the vineyard to get cracking on stuff. And then in verse 3, it says, about the 3rd hour, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. Now, some of you are reasonably asking the question, hey, did you figure out what time the 3rd hour is? Because we don't really use that language. And the reality is that every time I think I have this figured out and I'm ready to sound all smart and authoritative, I go and look it up and I'm like, I don't know. It looked like there was a Roman rendering of time and a Jewish rendering of time. I'm not sure I exactly get how this works. So I did some Googling and this seems to be the consensus. Most of what I'm reading here is saying that time started counting from 6 a.m. So early in the morning would mean that this landowner went out and picked up the first round of workers like 6 a.m., crack it on. So now if we're in the 3rd hour, this is like 9 a.m., we're getting toward mid-morning. And at this point, probably some other landowners have come out, crew chiefs have come out and hired other effective-looking workers. So probably the quality of worker is diminished a little bit at this point, but hey, there's still people out there who are like, nope, hired or not, even if I sit here for 3 hours, I am still going to work today, even if work is just trying to find work. And so there are people still there, and the fact that they're still there, it maybe says something about their capacity to do the work, but yeah, maybe it also says something complimentary about their stubbornness and insistence on staying in the game. Maybe I'm inflicting that onto the story and it's not actually there. So 3rd hour is probably 9 o'clock. And it says that landowner went out and he saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. Again, the English rendering there makes it sound like they're being lazy, but they are still trying to get work. They just aren't being assigned to any kind of task, any kind of harvest. So verse 4, he told them, you also go and work in my vineyard and I'll pay you whatever is right. So they went. Well, why didn't he just hire everybody in the first place? I think that's a reasonable question to ask at this point. I guess my impression would be, well, why wouldn't you hire everybody in the first place? And then why would you come back 3 hours later if you had a job like this to hire more people? I think the reason would be because some kind of circumstances or timeline are happening that affects how quickly you want to get the work done. So in the early going, it's like, well, we're going to try to knock this much out today, but maybe there's some weather on the horizon. Maybe it's just a great day to bring in this harvest of grapes and work in this vineyard in whatever phase we're working in here. Whatever the rationale, it's clear that the landlord, who understands the vineyard better than anybody and is more vested in the vineyard than anybody else, is like, no, more workers now would be great. There's a sense of urgency here. And so he goes out, and the way he frames the invitation is an invitation to trust him. Because there is no actual bargain here where he's like, all right, here's the contract. You come and work for me, and we got 3 hours out of our, let's say, 8-9 hour day knocked out. I'll pay you 67% of your wages today. What do you say? No, there's a reason these people were still in the marketplace. They want to work. And I guess the landowner presents himself well enough that they're like, yeah, I'll take a flyer on this. And so they make this deal a little bit sight unseen, just saying, oh, we're going to trust that this landowner is going to do right by us because, as you said, he'll pay you whatever's right. So good enough. They went. Continuing in verse 5, he went out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour. So let me see, that would be noon, and that would be 3. So now you got people who are willing to sit in the marketplace in the heat of the day and just roast because very stubbornly they want to work. Now, again, I don't know that this is evident in the text, but my guess would be these are getting to be really slim pickings, like the bottom of the barrel in terms of people you would want to pay to come and work. My guess is that $10 for the workers that the landowner got early in the morning is going to accomplish way more than $10 with the kind of day workers that you could hire at 3 p.m. But whatever the case, he hires them. And then about the 11th hour, he went out and found still others standing around. Now, 11th hour, that's like really, really late. That's 5 p.m. That's like quitting time, I would think. I have to admit, I don't know how the phrase the 11th hour informs this text. If this is one of those little bits of Matthew that everybody just knows this expression, oh, it's the 11th hour, or if that was a more Hebrew or Roman expression that Jesus is harnessing here. But I do think this would have resonated as a detail with the original audience, and that, wait a minute, why would somebody be hiring people at quitting time? So I guess they're going to work past quitting time. And to me, maybe this is a stretch, maybe not, but that points back a little bit to some of the urgency that we see at the end of Matthew chapter 9, when we have this very pivotal passage in the entire book. This is the one where when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." So it sounds like there's a degree of urgency in Jesus' mind at the end of chapter 9. And indeed, everything that happens after chapter 9 suggests that there is a degree of urgency. The harvest is now. Now is the time to get some people ready to be raised up to go and do something about this, because you don't just take in the harvest casually whenever it makes sense for you at any given time during the year. There's a moment that is opportune. And this idea of the fullness of time and the uniqueness of the moment is something that Jesus talks about, not just in Matthew, but in other parts of the New Testament, where he celebrates people who are willing to throw off social encumbrances to heap praise and attention on him because they get it. They get the uniqueness of this moment where God became flesh and God is with us and Jesus is here and the kingdom is happening and unfolding right now. This is a unique moment. And then you've got that additional New Testament concept of the fullness of time, and God is this entity that is master and sovereign over everything, orchestrating time to bring it to this moment. I mean, all of that points to the idea that there is something urgent about this, and that there is something that needs to happen in a narrow window of time for God's providential redemptive plan to unfold the way it's supposed to. And so I don't think I'm inflicting too much on this parable to look at this 11th hour and he's still out hiring to be maybe a little bit tied to that concept at the end of Matthew chapter 9. The harvest is ready now. It looks like this landowner had something, whether it was a harvest or or some kind of preparation of the vineyard, whatever needed to happen there, it needed to happen in a specific window of time. And he was going to go get people and bring them in to complete the task, even pushing the boundaries of the normal pace, indicating that the landowner feels that there is a fullness of the moment that needs to be seized upon here. And look at me, spur of the moment, I got excited about that little sidetrack that I just thought of, and now I didn't get to what happened at the 11th hour. But we'll get to what happened at the 11th hour tomorrow, because this is not the fullness of time for us. And even though it sounds like I'm dying, I'm not actually, and we should have plenty of opportunity to complete our conversations in the coming days, which we'll do. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.